Members, we have a quorum, so let's start the meeting. Information papers issued since the last meeting. The Secretariat issued 5 information papers. So members, please note the papers. There was also one paper put forward by the Vice Chairman on understanding the agricultural policy in Taiwan. The Secretariat has prepared the paper and it has been circulated among members since this morning. So if there is no question, I'll move on to item 2, and let's invite the administration in. As this is a legislative proposal, members not LegCo members not who are not panel members are also invited to take part in the discussion of this item. And the Secretariat this morning also received Friends of Cats and Dogs and Animal Welfare Group's submission. It's been tabled for members' reference. So let me welcome Professor Sophia Chan, Under Secretary for Food and Health, Mr. Christopher Wong, Deputy Secretary for Food and Health, and from AFCD, Dr. Thomas Sit, and Dr. Mary Chow, and also Dr. Esther To, Senior Veterinary Officers. So I'll invite Professor Chan from Food and Health Bureau to walk us through the paper. Thank you, Madam Chair, members. At the panel meeting on the 16th of April 2013, we reported to members and we consulted deputations and panel members on the relevant proposal, and we have received a clear support. And on the way forward, there were some mixed views. And since the last meeting, the AFCD, after collecting views at the meetings, has revisited the proposed measures and legislative proposals, and the department has been maintaining dialogue with animal welfare groups, animal breeders, traders, and other concerned parties to discuss issues of their concerns. And we would like to take today's opportunity to respond to the issues raised and also to report to members this proposal to amend the Public Health Animals and Birds Animal Traders Regulation CAP 139B. And the proposal is to step up regulation of animal trading and the breeding and welfare of dogs with a view to enhancing animal health and welfare. Now, one of the suggestions is about a single animal breeder license. A motion was passed at the panel meeting in April last year that this panel urges the AFCD to merely issue under its proposed licensing requirements a single animal breeder license which applies to all commercial and private animal breeders and traders to protect the welfare of animals, and also to remove the animal breeder license A. And having reviewed the options, we believe that the 2-tier licensing regime is more appropriate for small-scale breeders if they're required to observe similar requirements. For large-scale breeders, it will not be reasonable, and ABLA holders will also be required to observe most of the licensing conditions applicable to ABLB holders, including training requirements, accommodation requirements, and they need to comply with the codes of practice and the number of dogs that can be kept on the premises. We believe that we can strike a balance between protecting animal welfare and the responsibility placed on the dog breeder. And in fact, in other comparable jurisdictions overseas, small-scale breeding is not subject to any regulation. So for the proposal to regulate small-scale dog breeders. It is already more stringent than what is currently practiced in many other jurisdictions. And we don't expect that the ABLA holders will lead to a significant expansion in the hobby breeding activities. As for the views of other stakeholders, apart from the concerns over the ABLA issue, we have also considered whether the number of ABLA and ABLB licenses should be kept, and we don't see strong justification for imposing a cap. And we also have some proposed measures on the regulation of dogs, and there is a suggestion for extending the proposal to cats and other pets. And one single applicant may be allowed to obtain at most 2 one-off permits within a 24-month period for selling his own pet dog. And there are some concerns over this proposal, as this might result in the abuse of the system. And having considered the views carefully, we're prepared to tighten the requirements so that a single applicant will be allowed to obtain a maximum of 3 one-off permits within a 10-year period. Now, resource implications of the AFCD. On this point, the department will implement measures and recruit more manpower if necessary to cover the increased workload. On the codes of practice, in issuing license, various license types, licensing conditions will be imposed. For example, the holders are required to observe the codes of practice, and breaching the code will be considered a breach of the licensing conditions, and the license holders may be subject to prosecution. We're going to consult stakeholders on the additional licensing conditions in the code of practice. And once we're ready with the draft, we will consult the stakeholders and the trade. And all in all, the outcome of the public consultation on enhancing animal welfare through better regulation of animal trading is that there is in general support from the community. And last April, we also consulted this panel deputations and discussed with them. And the AFCD has maintained dialogue with the stakeholders, and we've come to the same conclusion. And having collected all the views and having considered the views, we believe that the proposal set out in paragraphs 5 to 8 in the paper and the proposed modification to the one-off permit as elucidated in paragraph 19 would serve the policy objectives of enhancing animal health and welfare, and also strike a balance between protection of animal welfare and the interests of pet owners and pet traders. On protecting animal welfare and health, we urge members to support this legislative proposal, and subject to views raised at this meeting, we're going to prepare legislative amendments to Cap 139B with a view to tabling the amendment regulation before the LegCo in the 2014-15 legislative session. So maybe I'll stop here. I welcome questions from members. Thank you. Those who would like to ask questions, please indicate. We have Claudia Mo, Wong Kwok Heng, Ellen Leung, Alice Mack. Anyone else who would like to ask questions? Deputy Chair and myself. So 5 minutes each. Questions and answers included. Ms. Claudia Mo. Well, I do not question your intention to enhance the animal health and welfare and deal with the breeding of dogs. But the point is you're legalizing what is supposed to be illegal, and you have also included many conditions. Animal cruelty is, of course, against the law, but anything lighter than cruelty may be permissible. Of course, I see you have collected views and on allowing a one-off permit, two one-off permits within 24-month period. You're going to change this to a maximum of 3 one-off permits within a 10-year period. This is a big leap forward. However, you fail to grasp the spirit. Now, the whole government, including the AFCD, has been urging advocating this. If you want to keep a pet, you will have to take care of the pet throughout its life. What is the reason for selling one's own pet? For emigration, for some reason or another? You're going to sell your own pet dog. So the spirit should be that at least you should find another good owner for the pet, or you should not encourage pet owners to sell their own pets. So I really beg to differ on this point. You insist not to have one single type of license to adopt a higher threshold. You say there is no strong justification to support that. But for animal welfare groups, over the past year or two, they have been incessantly advocating this point. So through Chair, I have a question. You say that license holders will need to have certain relevant professional knowledge. Otherwise, they'll need to go through training. How can this be done? Just to attend seminars, and also you undertake that there'll be more manpower for AFCD to step up inspection. Well, what is the extent? Let's say I live on the 18th floor, and you may not even get past the management office downstairs. And there are also other conflicts with neighbors, like noise and smell. And we live in very tight space. You compare ourselves with the UK. The UK is a country, and what are we? A small city, a crowded city. And you insist that you're not going to cap the number of licenses. So will it be subject to any review or revision? Maybe in the future, anyone can keep several dogs and become private breeders. So will you envisage a drastic increase in the number of applicants for licenses?
Thank you, Ms. Mo. The administration always believe that we should, take good care of the animals and their welfare. We are now proposing to amend Cap 139B because the existing ordinance exempt these small-scale breeders who, in fact, are selling the animals, and the FCD is also aware of that situation. So the industry has urged us to amend 139B. At the same time, we believe that those two licenses, and I won't elaborate any further, I don't think you need to repeat what you've already said. The real issue now is that the change you're proposing now is that an applicant can only apply for 3 one-off permits within a 10-year period. That would bind one single person. But what happens if I ask my close relatives and business partners to apply for such a license, on my behalf? Deputy Secretary, I think the licensing authority at the FCD also have information concerning these animal traders. So we've consider this carefully and believe that a maximum of 3 one-off permits within a 1-year period can actually, eliminate the problem which the member just referred to. Mr. Wong Ka-ki. I support the administration's response. I agree that we should have 2 separate type of licenses because that is conducive to the protection of animal welfare, and it's also conducive to better regulation. Therefore, I support the proposal that there should be 2 categories of licenses. At the early stage of the policy deliberation, I already asked the government when the proposals or the proposed regulation could be extended to cats. So, do you have a timetable? That is, after the commencement of this ordinance, when will there be a review so that you can also extend the protection to cats as well? Deputy Secretary, our intention is that after the amendment bill becomes the law, we will look at the effectiveness of these new regulatory measures and then consider whether or not the situation in relation to dogs have stabilized and that the regulation could be extended to cats and other pets. We don't have a timetable, but we promise that after the bill becomes law, we will certainly have a review. Well, the Undersecretary just now gave a positive response. I note in particular that you will consider extending the coverage of the legislation to cats and other pets. I think this is very important because people nowadays not only keep dogs and cats as pets. In fact, there are people who even keep reptiles as pets. So I want this bill to be enacted as soon as possible. Because without effective regulation, public safety may be at risk. So could the Undersecretary elaborate on this further? Secondly, we all know that we have filibustering on every subject in LegCo now. The Undersecretary told us that the bill could be tabled at the next legislative session. So between now and the enactment of the bill, we're talking about at least a period of 1 year. So during this interim period, or before the bill becomes law, how can the administration, protect the welfare of the dogs and cats and other pets as well? Do you need to step up inspection? Thank you, Mr. Wong. I've already said earlier, and you said you wanted me to elaborate further on our proposals in relation to cats. We are proposing to start with dogs because dogs take up a large proportion in the pet market. That's why we want to start with the regulation in respect of dogs, and then we will review the situation and see whether how effective these measures are before we consider extending the coverage to other pets. Between now and the enactment of this bill, we hope that after listening to the views of this panel, the FCD will start drafting the bill. Hopefully, we hope it will be able to be tabled to LegCo as soon as possible. Meanwhile, we will step up our public education and all the we hope that the pet owners and traders, we hope that the pet owners will really, keep their pets for the whole duration of their lives and continue to take good care of their pets. Perhaps the Assistant Director can also supplement. Dr. Sid, thank you. Under Cap 139B, all the dog traders are required to obtain a license. In the course of enforcement, if there is no clear stipulation for different types of licenses, we need to take undercover operations. And we have our colleagues pretending to be customers to go online and to carry out undercover operations in order to take enforcement actions. Ellen Leong, first of all, does the administration have an understanding about the number of such private animal breeders in Hong Kong? And secondly, if LegCo endorses the amendment to Cap 139B, will there be an increase in the number of such a number of dogs which are bred by these private breeders or not? Well, I think no matter how good these proposals sound, and the vet told us that the FCD sometimes will conduct undercover operations. For ABLB, I mean, we're talking about pet owners who could be living on the upper floors of a multi-story building. How are you going to take enforcement action? When you enact a piece of legislation, you would expect that it is enforceable. Otherwise, if you enact a legislation and there is ineffective enforcement, then what's the point? So I'd like to ask the administration whether you have any plan in terms of the manpower implications which may be required. You say that for the genuine pet owners, they are able to, have a maximum of 3 one-off permits within 10 years. This is an improvement. But right now, who is the pet owner and who's the breeder? It's not very clear. I hope this is a misunderstanding on my part. I understand that a pet breeder doesn't have to take a license, doesn't need to go through an examination or training. So how do you differentiate the breeders from the genuine owners? Deputy Secretary, perhaps I would defer to AFCD to answer your specific questions. But to answer your last question, it is my understanding that if you were the pet owner, normally you would not sell your pet. The existing legislation will not regulate such persons if they don't sell their pets. But if you are breeding such pets and selling them as well, it would depend on how many pets you keep. For license A, you can only keep a maximum of 4 pets, and for license B, you can have breed a large number of pets. If you are a genuine pet owner and if you need to move houses and you want to sell your pet, then you can apply for a single permit, and the same person can only apply for 3 one-off permits within 10 years. The sale of anyone who sells pets would need to obtain a license. Regarding the number of private breeders, perhaps the director could provide you with the information. Thank you, Mr. Leong. It is our estimate that there are about 200 to 300 private breeders in the market. With the new regulation in place, we do not believe that the number of such breeders will go up drastically, because the number of pet owners in the market has stayed very stable. It wouldn't be so that the case that with more pet breeders there will be more pet owners. And secondly, with these licensing conditions being tightened, I believe the number of breeders may actually go down. Yes, Chairman. Madam Chair, regarding the enforcement mechanism, we will have additional resources after the enactment of the bill. When the AFCD deployed its manpower resources, it would have its strategy. I think that past experience will certainly help. In the present amendment, we are proposing to increase the penalties. So with additional resources and the increased penalties, I'm sure there will be sufficient deterrence for the illegal breeders. Alice Matt. First of all, I agree that we should amend the ordinance as soon as possible so that we can ensure the welfare of the animals and the pet breeding industry can be protected. So with even with the new legislation, we need to also step up enforcement. Moreover, education is important. I think we need to keep our pets for life. I've even, told, I should actually arrange for other people to take care of my pets if I should pass away. I have actually, taken custody of some dogs which have been abandoned. I've actually, performed a hospice service for a dog which has been abandoned by its owners. So education does not only mean you're producing, APIs. I think you should really educate the public. There are some operators, I think in the pet breeding industry, or rather there are some pet owners who think that through breeding they can improve or maintain the pedigree of their pets. But the problem we face in Hong Kong is that when they have dog clubs, they want to operate dog clubs, they need to apply for a license, and we all know that many of them operate on farmland in the New Territories, but these premises are not suitable for them to operate kennels. And it's not so easy for them to apply for a license. That's why they like you to maintain the two-tier licensing system. There are people who genuinely want to be dog breeders because they want to maintain or even improve the pedigree of their dogs. So are there any way you can help these people to help them with their business, that is? And for those people who apply for the animal breeding license A, those who keep the pets at home, there's no licensing requirement and at the moment, and these people are not required to attend an examination. So do you have a timetable to do that so that animal health will not be jeopardized in the course of breeding? Deputy Secretary, I'll try, and then my colleagues from AFCD can also supplement. Thank you very much for your suggestion on the point about education. I agree that other than the AFCD, if all the people of Hong Kong and the schools can start, educating the people of Hong Kong from an early age about this is very important. So we've heard Ms. Mack's point, and I'll ask my colleague from the AFCD to answer Ms. Mack's second question. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Mack raised the point about public education. Actually, the AFCD has a dedicated team in charge of public education. Other than advertising or APIs, we've actually go to public housing estates and schools to spread the message. We also work together with different animal welfare groups to promote such public education. For example, we have recently published an education kit for children. Actually, we have carried out joint operations and events to promote, the message as to how we can help the private breeders to keep the pedigree of their pets. Indeed, it is true that when there are people who want to apply for an animal breeding license, they would need to comply with the requirements of the outline zoning plan. If they identify a site which is an agricultural site which is not suitable, then they would need to apply to the town planning board for a change in the land use.
So the AFCD can help them contact the relevant department like the lands department in processing the application. But it's ultimately up to the departments which process these applications. Deputy Chair, I agree with Ms. Alice Mack. Now some people insist that there should be 2 types of licenses because well, generally speaking, throughout the world, when we come to talk about breeding, it's part of the agricultural industry. So if it's taken outside the scope of agricultural industry, then as Mr. Alan said, there are problems. For example, what is meant by professional knowledge. Without any regulation over the industry, you may have problems. So the DAB at present supports a proposed bill. Now, the community has been debating on whether there should be 1 or 2 types of licenses, and things have been dragging on for too long, and we won't see the bill until next year, and the animal will continue to suffer. Please table the bill next year, and don't just stop there. Please continue to enhance animal welfare. Ms. Mo also raised a point, and that is also my concern. That is whether the system will be abused. As I understand, there will be a microchip implanted in the dog with the owner being registered. Let's say if I have 3 or 4 dogs registered under my name, then I can only apply for the apply for a one-off permit to sell my dog just 3 or 4 times. So please explain this point very clearly to prevent any abuse. Thank you, Mr. Ho. I defer to Dr. Sid. Thank you, Mr. Ho. You're right. Now, for dogs over 5 months of age, under the current legislation, they're required to be implanted with a microchip, and the chip is implanted in the body of the dog, and it's hard to take it out. And for the one-off permit, the purpose is to prevent the abuse of people using the one-off permit to trade animals. Now, for a maximum of 3 permits in a 10-year period, basically it won't be profitable. Now, let me just interject. For example, I keep 3 dogs at a time. Now, let's say Ms. Mack also keeps 2 dogs, and let's say if I am emigrating, can I sell 3 dogs at a time? Let's say if Ms. Alice Mack is going to US or Canada, what will happen to her 2 dogs? I don't know how many, at least 2. We try our best to encourage members of the public to give away the dog or to keep the dog for the rest of its life. However, the number is limited, so we're giving these people a channel to do so, but the point is that it should be limited. Now, as long as you send out this clear, strong message. Now, some groups, animal welfare groups, are also concerned that unlicensed breeders may use the loophole. They may be giving dogs away for free and instead charge the prospective buyer for vaccination and other miscellaneous charges. How can you clarify this point on enforcement? Thank you, Mr. Ho. In the future, we regard such activities as transactions, as long as one have actual gain. So even if the dog food is given away for free, it will also be regarded as sale. So selling of dogs, enforcement action will be taken. Okay, my turn. I want to ask about para 13 of the paper. Now the AFCD officers will take regular inspections on the premises of ALBA holders, and I think today we've asked about the estimated number of applicants for license A and license B. Now let's say if there are thousands of license A holders, will there be sufficient manpower to conduct inspections? And it's not set out very clearly. It only said that the license holders are required to undergo appropriate training and comply with the codes of practice as one of the licensing conditions. My question is, does it mean that whether it be license A or B, they would need to go through training, and yet they don't need to go through any examination before they're given their issued licenses? My question is whether before training and the issuance of license, between that, is there any examination? And will there be any additional manpower for this purpose? And can you give us this information after the meeting? For example, what the training is about, the number of hours required, whether any examination is required. Can you tell us something about that? Yes, from AFCD, Madam Chair. Now, as we said just now, at this stage, we estimate the number of ABLA holders to be around 200 and 300 private breeders, according to our surveys and investigation, who are relatively more active. So for these 200 and 300 hobby breeders, we are going to deploy manpower and adjust our enforcement strategy. If the bill is passed, we're going to have additional manpower. We'll take a risk assessment approach. Let's say if the premises are managed properly, and if the number of dogs kept are limited, we may not need to take frequent inspections. For larger breeding farms, we may need to inspect on a monthly basis to check the dams, the breeding dams, and their records. We also have other enforcement work, and we'll flexibly deploy manpower to cover increased workload as well as emergency incidents. So we will only take frequent inspections of large breeding farms, but not smaller or small-scale premises. Well, we take regular inspections, but based on the information we collect, we're going to categorize them. Some premises may be more satisfactory because before issuing the license, we are going to inspect the premises. Now, if the management is good, if the premises is of small scale, we may not need to make frequent inspections. So what? How many officers will be deployed to inspect the premises? We have 4 kennels at the moment, and each having a team for licensing matters. Now, that's not the situation is not the same for each AMCs or animal management centers. What about territory-wide? We have around 10 to 20 officers for inspection. We also have another team for online patrol. There are 4 or 5 of them specifically deployed for inspection and decoy. operations. Now, if the bill is passed, is it necessary to increase manpower to step up inspection and to provide training? Yes, if the bill is passed, we are going to restructure our teams. There'll be a dedicated team for issuing licenses. So there'll be more manpower for both inspection and training. Yes. Next, Dr. Kenneth Chan, 5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Now, I am really puzzled about one of the points in the paper. Article 105 of the Basic Law. The government keeps saying that in the end of the day, pets are only properties, and owners of these properties, therefore, should have the right to choose whether to sell their properties or not. Now, I feel really uneasy because lives are involved, and it's really a question of ethics. That is why all along we have been discussing the issue of animal breeding and trading. The question is not about tightening up the licensing system to increase inspections, to allow hobby breeders to, like ordinary members of the public, to become hobby breeders by adopting a low threshold. This is not what we want. So, why is the proposal so lax? Why isn't it more stringent, with more stringent requirements, so that members of the public who would like to become breeders would need to undergo training and assessment, and would have to report to the relevant authority like the AFCD on a regular basis, instead of talking about some 200 and 300 hobby breeders. And on the extent of increasing manpower, in fact, Madam Chair, your question hasn't been answered. Will there be a system to regularly assess the risks, etc.? These are points that I feel uneasy about. Here we have the free market, and pets are regarded as properties that can be sold in the private market freely. Hong Kong is a crowded place. We live in a tight space, and if you allow hobby breeders to trade or sell their pets in such an environment, this is not what we want. So, of course, there is a code of practice, there is a system, but if the requirements are very lax, then I think this system is doomed to fail. I think Undersecretary should go back to reconsider it. Apart from abiding by the market principles, you should also consider that animals are also lives.
Deputy Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chan, for your comment. Let me reiterate that we are now proposing to amend 139B, and this is in line with Mr. Chan's point that we want to tighten the existing regulation. The present situation now is that if some people claim to be the owners of pets and they want to engage in a small-scale breeding of pets, they are exempted. We now believe that there's a problem, and that we need a licensing system. So even for the ABLA holders, the licensing conditions we propose are certainly not lenient. So, well, at the moment, one can say that there is no regulation because such breeders are exempted. But if the regulation were enacted and becomes the law, then they would still need to comply with the licensing requirements. And under the licensing conditions, there will be fines for people who illegally trade in pets or those who violate the licensing conditions. and the proposed fine is 50 times that of the current level. That is, instead of 1,000, it will be increased to 50,000. Illegal trading in animals, it's increased from $5,000 to 100,000. Madam Chair, the government is repeating itself here. If we are so serious about protecting the lives of animals, why don't we have a single high threshold that will enable you to have more effective regulation and supervision? All right. Are there any other members for the first round? If not, then we'll go to the second round. 4 minutes each. Ms. Claudia Mo. Mr. Wong Kok-heng has now left, or he has left the chamber. Reptiles are reptile. Reptile is not are not worms. I mean, you said that you will consider extending the regulation to cats. Do you have a list as to whether or not reptiles will also be covered? For your decoy operations, have you have any successful cases that you can share with us? For example, the operation itself. And thirdly, the AFCD will need to will require additional manpower and funding after the amendment regulation. So how much additional manpower and resources does the department need? Thirdly, I'm very skeptical. You say that we have a population of more than 7 million. You say there are only 200 to 300 hobby breeders. The more I heard you're referring to the active breeders. The active breeders are the professional breeders. You've not counted the amateur or hobby breeders. You say you don't need to bother about the hobby breeders, but that's not the case according to your regulations. There are people who are called professional amateurs, and they make a living, perhaps on a part-time basis, breeding animals. So does you say there are now 200 to 300 hobby breeders. With the enactment of regulation, once the number of these hobby breeders exceed 300, would it be that after the amendment you encourage more people to become part-time hobby breeders of pets? And that is very dangerous. And secondly, let's say I am a part-time or hobby breeders. I just want to breed a couple of dogs or cats of good pedigree that could be sold for tens of thousands of dollars each. What I mean, if I don't even bother to apply for a license, how can you check that? I mean, the transaction will only involve the transfer of a red packet. I just, have the transaction conducted in cash. Are you going to ask the ICAC to look into such transactions? You say there are 200 to 300 active hobby breeders. If the number of these breeders go up, it will be a major problem, because the new regulation is in fact encouraging more people to become to make a living out of breeding dogs. So the whole amendment exercise will not be able to actually regulate, those people who breed animals to make a living. Thank you, Ms. Mo. You ask about cats and other reptiles. We do not have such a list. Of course, we've heard views from different quarters that we should also cover cats as well. Regarding the undercover operations and whether or not we have had any success stories, I'll ask the AFCD to answer the question. Also the question about manpower and funding. Thank you. Regarding the decoy operations, our colleagues will be deployed from staff from other divisions for that. We have had many successful examples. Perhaps I can share one or two with you. In industrial buildings, our colleagues have successfully, detected illegal breeding activities. We've also had our colleagues pretending to be a buyer visiting the home or a classroom of these people who traded in pets and successfully prosecuted them. We also, conduct decoy operations after we've obtained information on the internet. On the question of manpower, we certainly will be recruiting more staff. As to how much additional manpower we require, again, that will depend on what government resources will be available at the time. We're talking about hundreds. We will certainly deploy our manpower accordingly. Obviously, we would prefer to have more money. What about more people? What about funding? We will apply for funding. How much? We will. I really cannot give you a figure now. As for the number of people engaged in the breeding of animals, I think the whole purpose of the regulation is to ensure that the owners treat their pets well. As to whether or not they engage in the breeding and the sale of their pets, this is a commercial behavior. The whole purpose of the regulation is to protect animal welfare. Like the Deputy Secretary said, we hope that with these regulations we will be able to know that the people who are engaged in the trading of these animals will have the protection. What about the question about the training that will be required before a person becomes licensed? Perhaps Dr. Chow could respond to that question. Madam Chair, regarding training, what we are now planning to do is that whether you're applying for ABLA or ABLB, or all these people applying for license and staff will need to undergo training. We are now studying with the Animal Welfare Advisory Group to set certain courses that are compulsory, and then a third party will design the evaluation system. Yet there will be a third party organization responsible for the provision of the whole entire course and the examination. So you will not be providing the course. We will set a syllabus, stipulating which are the topics which are compulsory and the minimum number of hours of training required. And the cost will be borne by the license holders themselves. Could you provide to this panel the details about the proposed courses, or are you going to outsource this? Or we intend to leave it to the private market operators to do this. How can you ensure that they will satisfy your standard or requirements? Is there a certification system? After they've proposed the course outline, that would need to be approved by our department. So you will approve courses organized by private groups, and then these organizations will issue certificates, and with such a certificate they can come and apply for license A and license B. So this examination and certifying process is very important. The teachers who are responsible for the training, whether or not they really have the expertise on animal breeding, is very important. If there are problems with the instructors or the trainers, then the whole spirit and purpose of the regulation will not be achieved. That's why I'm asking you, who are the people who will be providing the training? I also have another question regarding paragraph 8D. This is about the one-off permit for pet owner. That is, for any person, if you sell one dog, and which is he will still need to apply for a license, right? How are you going to enforce that? How can you enforce that if you have a person who gives away his dog to someone else and receive a red packet? You wouldn't know, right? And secondly, for a person who has obtained the animal breeding license A, then he would not need to apply for a single permit, right? If somebody has obtained the ABLA license, this is the breeding license. If someone has both either the ABLA or the ABLB license, does that mean that the person can trade in animals without having to apply for the single permit for the sale of animals? Madam Chair, the breeder's license requires that I think they will need to be registered. But if the license holder is not on the list, then he would need to obtain a single permit to sell the animals. So it doesn't mean that after you obtain the B license, you can freely sell the animals. So after a person obtains either the ABLA or the ABLA, the animals which are bred, if the person wants to sell those animals, they will still need to apply for a single permit each and every time he wants to sell such animals? No. The licensing requirement is that if it is, we're talking about commercial breeding, and the cubs are bred for sale, then he will need to be registered on a register, because the dogs are planted with a chip. So the person will be allowed to use the breeder's license to sell. But if someone has a pet dog, a dog which is a pet he keeps at home, and the dog he sells is not on the register, then the owner can only sell the dog with a one-way permit. So the cubs which are bred by someone holding an ABLB license, then such a person will not need to apply for a one-off permit. That's right, Chen Chi-Chin. Sorry, I was attending another meeting, Madam Chair, early on, so if my question has been raised already, then I would ask for your indulgence. We've been discussing the regulation for a long time, and I think our position has very clear. First of all, I'm all in favor and support increasing the fines for those who illegally trade in pets, and the court will impose sentences according to the proposed fines which have now been raised, instead of imposing a token fine. Regarding ABLA and ABLB, I've always worried that whether or not there will be a situation where you have the regulations but there won't be enforcement. No matter how stringent these regulations are, the question is whether or not you can enforce them. Will these regulations become totally ineffective because they can't be enforced, or that you simply don't have the resources to enforce the regulations? If that's the case, enacting a piece of legislation would be a futile exercise. So Claudia Mo asked you for some figures, and I think the ministry has not even considered that. So, but in your mind, you should have some ideas. You must be able to make a projection. For example, have you considered estimated the total number of people who will be applying for the ABLB licenses, the maximum and the minimum, and then you said that you need to conduct periodic inspection of the premises. You said that you will hire more staff, but at least you should have some number in mind. Is it that when Dr. Ko and the FS said it's fine, then give you the green light, and you go ahead and hire 1,000 additional staff? Of course, that wouldn't be possible. But at least you must have a budget or a projection. So have you considered that? Or are you thinking that you will first have the regulation enacted first and then decide what to do next? So if there are 300 such hobby breeders, or if you have 300 staff, then you can only say arrest 300 people, and no matter how many more there are.
Thank you, Mr. Chan. and thank you for your comment on our enforcement strategy. Now, the AFCD, first of all, after making and anticipating the number of ABLA or ABLB holders, will relax its effort in not taking enforcement action. And on additional manpower, maybe the AFCD in a moment can elucidate on it. The first strategy is to increase manpower. The second is to deploy manpower from existing resources. There are ways for them to deploy manpower, but they have also said that they will increase manpower. Maybe I'll defer to AFCD. Now, on manpower resources, let me say more about that. The 4 kennels at present have 20 colleagues dedicated to issuing licenses and inspections. We also have another team for undercover operation online and online patrol. We have about 4 or 5 colleagues in that team. And after the bill is passed, as I said just now, for the ABLA, as I said, according to our investigation and analysis, there are about 200 to 300 active breeders. As for ABLB, our rough estimate is that there may be some 20, 30 or so. We already have 10 such breeders in hand, and we expect to see 10 more or so applications. And we are going to combine the kennels to form a consolidated team specifically tasked to deal with issuing of licenses and inspections. I cannot give you the exact number at this stage, but we are going to take a flexible approach in deploying manpower on a risk management approach. Now, I really have reservations over the estimated number of 200 or 300 ABLA breeders. I think it's too optimistic. Well, it's really hard to judge anyway. We still have Ms. Sit Ho for the first round. Anyone going for a second round? If not, then after Ms. Sit Ho speaks, we are going to deal with this proposed motion moved by Ms. Claudia Mo. Ms. Sit Ho. Now, this is a bill to set up a licensing system. We welcome it, but the threshold is too low. You're only giving justifications or legal justifications for some to sell pets. But there is no regulation over whether some of the offsprings in the litter will be discarded and whether they will be subject to any punishment. You cannot just rely on the free market or the market power. Now, let's say a litter may give a number of cubs, and if they can't be sold, these breeders may probably ill-treat them or even discard them. Is there any way to regulate this? As deputations or as said just now, if you want to protect animal welfare, this is not appropriate. So is there any regulation over how many litters each dam can give a year, and to see if the rest of the litter is not yet sold, is being treated well or not, in order to protect animals? Under Secretary, thank you, Ms. Ho, for your question. I think on licensing, we have licensing conditions that the applicants will have to observe. And in the licensing period, AFCD officers will also conduct inspections and undercover operations. On penalty, we have increased it by 50-fold, and maybe Deputy Secretary can supplement. Now the member asked a question on a licensed breeder discarding the pet, and under this system, all offsprings will be subject to regulation and implantation of microchips, and we can trace the breeder and subject him to appropriate penalties. Madam Chair, I hope the administration would do this. Of course, this bill will be tabled, but the administration should give us some information papers on how you're going to regulate the breeders. Of course, you can implant microchips only if they report the number to you. Let's say in a breeding farm, the dam gives a litter, and if they don't report it, no microchip would be implanted, and they may just throw away the litter. So if you give them a legal justification to carry out breeding, you should regulate it, and you should know whether the unsold cubs would be discarded. PS or AFCD? As you mentioned, all license holders are required to observe licensing conditions and some requirements. And for dogs, they are subject to certain requirements on the number of litters and the periods allowed for breeding. And since we conduct inspections, we can monitor the breeding situations, and all the offsprings will be subject to the microchip implantation. So we would know throughout. So if many licenses are issued, will there be sufficient manpower for inspection, or will there be just random inspections, so that some less fortunate cubs will be subject to ill treatment after they're born? I think the administration has heard members loud and clear on the question of manpower for inspection, and also after issuing licenses, is there any mechanism for you to trace the number of cubs from a litter, and also for registration? You should keep this information. So that's the end of the question time. Mr. Ben Chan, you still have to you have something to say? Yes. On granting licenses to breeders, some members talked about the threshold, but I have this concern. If we lift the threshold as high as possible, in the end, the grassroots may want to have a pet, they want to keep a pet, and because of the high threshold, the pets would become very pricey, and they may not be able to afford it. Since the threshold is so high, the price would be very high. So that's my concern. So on Ms. Claudia Mo's motion, Mr. Chan, we have not dealt with the motion. If you want to speak on motion, please wait. We have received a motion moved by Ms. Claudia Mo. Members, do we agree to deal with this motion now? I'd like to see that. Those in favor, those who think we should deal with the motion, please raise your hands. Only if we agree to. Well, but if if she doesn't read it out, can we deal with it? Well, this panel urges the administration to reconsider the amendments to the Public Health, Animals and Birds, Animal Traders Regulations for better regulating pet trading, so that standardized license of a higher threshold can be issued so that it will be easier to take enforcement action and to protect animal welfare and health. Those in favor of dealing with Ms. Mo's motion now, please raise your hands. Those against? All right, so we deal with this motion now. Ms. Mo, please walk us through the motion. Now, if you have listened to our discussion just now, things are very clear. There are various types of licenses for large-scale and small-scale breeders, and I am really worried that the AFCD, despite good intentions, will be encouraging more breeding activities. Some might not originally have planned to become a trader, and since they can get a license now, they can actually breed their pets in their own premises as a form of to make a living. For large-scale breeding farms, it's easier to be put under regulation, like those in Yunlong. I don't think Mr. Ben Chan understands animal welfare and animal health, especially on dogs and cats. All along, we encourage adopting pets instead of trading. All right, any member would like to speak? 2 minutes each. Mr. Tommy Zhao. Madam Chair, we have discussed this issue time and again at this panel over the past few years. Every now and then we revisit this issue. Of course, although I understand the personal views of some members, as to whether a breeder should be licensed, whether it's a form of business or whether the pet just gives a litter to be given away to friends. We can have much discussion on it. I will not launch any personal attack on members or criticize any member. I think the administration's proposal has come by after years of discussion by this council, by political parties, and this is a proposal more acceptable by the majority. Maybe Ms. Claudia Mo wasn't in the council back then. She might not have participated in our discussion, but still she could read our minutes and she could see that's how it come by. Ms. Christopher Cheung. Now, if you say that the people are ignorant about animal welfare and so on and so forth, you should not move this motion on the trading. Are you really in favor of selling, or what? What is meant by threshold, high or low, and what will the problem? What problems will that be?
If you do this, then only the large breeders will monopolize the market. I think what we should say is that in the light of the different circumstances, the law should be able to cater to different scenarios. That is, we draw a line so that most people will not be able to comply, and I think we can support that. Right? If there are no further comments, we will need to take a vote on Ms. Mo's proposed motion. All those in favor, please put up your hands. Or what? All those in favor. Mr. Cheung Ka-ki, Sit Ho. Dr. K.K. Kwok. Mr. Chen Chi-kin, Ms. Claudia Mo. Anyone else? Those against? Mr. Chung Shi-kan, Wong Kok Heng, Alice Mack, Mr. Chen Kok-kin, Mr. Chen Hang Ban, and Mr. Tommy Zhang. Will those who are against the motion please put up your hands again? Mr. Ho Chin Yin, Deputy Chairman, Wong Kok Hing, Wong Kok Kin, Alice Mack, Chung Shi Kan, Chan Hang Ban, and Tommy Jiang. We have 7 against and 5 in favor. Any abstention? The chair doesn't vote. So the motion therefore is not carried. So with that, I think we can end a discussion on this item. I'd like to thank the AFCD and the Deputy Secretary for attending our meeting. And we now need to move on to the third item, policy, the 3-pronged approach in respect of columbarium. Alice Mack, Wong Kok Heng, KK Kwok, Sit Ho, Cheung Kwok Chi have already put up their hands.
So
we're scheduled to finish at 4:55 for this item. The papers have already been circulated to members earlier. We have also received a submission from the Alliance on the Alliance for the in concern of columbaria. Since the paper is about the bill in relation to the columbarium, so I will also refer this document to the Bills Committee on the on columbarium policy. Well, the relevant papers have already been circulated to members. I would like to invite, first of all, Professor Sophia Chen to tell us about the 3-pronged strategy. Thank you. We're here today to brief members on the 3-pronged strategy underpinning the government's columbarium policy. Under this strategy, the government, on the one hand, will need to promote green burials and also implement 2 major measures. First of all, increasing the supply of public columbaria and also regulating private columbaria. On promoting green burials, the mainstream approach now is to have the ashes deposited in a depository for ashes. In order to promote green burials, we need to change people's mindset and make it more acceptable by the public, and we believe this takes time. Green burial is more environmentally friendly and a more sustainable way to deal with the ashes, including scattering of human ashes in the Garden of Remembrance and or at sea, or paying tribute to the deceased through the Internet memorial service. We've always been encouraging people to adopt scattering of human ashes in the Gardens of Remembrance. The AFCD has built larger Gardens of Remembrances, and in future, where possible, we will also build Gardens of Remembrance in the public columbaria. And for the Chinese Cemetery management of Chinese permanent secretaries, they will also, the BMCPC that is, will take forward the silent teacher and silent mentor ashes scattering program. And also, we will encourage people to scatter human ashes at sea by providing free ferry services. Starting from January 2013, we've also improved the frequency of these ferries to 4 every month. The FESD have also set up a memorial website and step up public education and publicity so the public can better understanding and accept sustainable methods of dealing with the human ashes and remembering their ancestors. On increasing the supply of public columbaria, the Wholesale columbaria has already been completed in 2013. We've identified 24 potential sites for the building of public columbarium, and since the second quarter of 2012, we have consulted the views of different district councils. The Wholesale columbarium and the Diamond Hill columbarium provide 43,710 and 1,540 new niches respectively, and they have been sold in 3 phases. Phases 1 and 2 have already been completed. The third phase involves about 24,000 new niches, and we've just started the application. For the Cheung Cemetery, we'll be building 1,000 new niches. Work has completed at the end of 2013. The project along Cheung Road has already been supported by the Kwai Ching District Council. We will amend the land use, and it was approved by the Town Planning Board. So public consultation is now ongoing. For Sandy Ridge, Phase 1 of Wholesale and Zhangzhou, we have consulted the Timon and North District councils. We are also exploring the proposals in respect of the road improvement projects. So we will consult the different district councils in the course of 2014. For private columbaria, they can help make up satisfy some of the demand in the market. We expect that the BMCPC will provide roughly 35,600 new niches in the next 2 years, whereas the Catholics, Christians, and Buddhist groups are now have about 27 unallocated niches. The Chinese Christian cemetery and the Buddhist cemetery are expected to provide 47,000 and 3,200 new niches respectively in the next 2 to 3 years. If all these projects under planning have the support of the District Council and LegCo, we expect that by the year 2031, the supply of new niches will cumulatively be in hundreds of thousands. We also encourage people to make optimal use of the columbarium niches. Starting from 2014, we allow the number of ashes that could be stored at each niche. We're also amending the BMCPC ordinance to relax the definition of kinship so that close relatives, the ashes of close relatives could be stored in the same niche. We will also be building more public columbaria. To do that, we need to overcome technical challenges. We also need to consider the concerns of the residents in the area, and that is why we are now considering various ways to increase supply. And because of the very often the transportation issue is the major challenge, and we need to consider different options to control the human traffic during the peak season of grave sweeping. And we also need to resolve the question of overcoming the bottlenecks in terms of transportation. We should also make optimal use of the site. Other measures to ensure continued supply of niches. For example, we will consider time-limited occupation of new niches, and we're happy that some district councils have responded positively to these proposals. We'll continue to explore these issues and also identify new projects so that we can implement them on a pilot basis. Thirdly, the regulation of private columbaria. The government on the 25th of June already proposed to LegCo the bill on private columbaria. Through a licensing regime, the government proposed to regulate private columbarium operators. When the bill becomes law, a person will need to be licensed or have an exemption or before they can operate private columbaria in Hong Kong. The secretary in moving the motion explained to LegCo the content of the bill, so I'm not going to repeat that here today. Just to reiterate that the licensing system would need to be, would be able to address the concerns of all stakeholders concerned. And for existing columbaria which do not satisfy the requirements, we want to deal with them in a pragmatic manner. The authorities on the subject of how to deal with private columbarium, we need to be both reasonable and humane. That is, we need to take into consideration the public's demand for private columbaria, and secondly, the feeling of the relatives of the deceased, and thirdly, we should try to minimize the nuisance caused by columbaria to the residents in the vicinity, and also in the long term that they can operate on a sustainable basis. Overall, the administration has done its level best to come up with timely and appropriate regulatory system and to balance the concern of the different stakeholders. Before the passage of the bill, we will, through various channels, remind the consumers to be careful and cautious. But the ultimate solution is for the bill to be enacted as soon as possible, so that by launching the regulatory system, the public and the trade would be clear about all these arrangements. So we would like the committee to support the scrutiny of the bill, so that with the passage of the bill, we would be able to launch and implement the licensing system as possible, and that we can implement the three-pronged strategy. And also that is encouraging green burial, increase the supply of niches, and also regulating private columbarias. Thank you. I'll read out the names of members who want to speak. Alice Mac, Wong Kok Heng, KK Kwok, Sid Ho, Cheung Kwok Chi, myself, Cheung Ka-lok, Chung Chi Kan, Chen Hang Bun, and the Deputy Chairman, 10 in total. Shall we say 4 minutes per member? We'll start with Ms. Alice Mack. Thank you. We support the licensing regime for columbaria, because only by doing so can we safeguard the interests of consumers, because there are many loopholes in respect of the contracts of private columbaria. Many of the columbarium niches are put under Schedule 2, and even though on the 18th of June the government announced the moratorium, these operators are now resorting to all kinds of ways. For example, urging the potential buyers to buy the niches, wanting them that the prices go up later, and they also would set a date and say if the consumers don't place a deposit before a particular date, then the prices of the niche will go up by 30%. Although the secretary reiterated again and again and told the consumers not to buy any niches now, but you must understand the consumers will be really put in a difficult position. What's going to happen if the niches become even more expensive, because there is such a shortage of supply and a long queue of consumers who want to buy the niches? So what can you do other than your publicity? For those people who are telling consumers that if they don't buy now, prices to niches will go up in future, how are you going to deal with that?
Now, some haven't actually bought it, but they have placed deposit let's say the deposits are paid in the name of certain fees and charges, and this is regarded as the deposit. Now, you say that they're not allowed to sell the niches, but they just circumvent this requirement and collect charges from people as a form of deposit. So it's de facto deposit, only that on the receipt it doesn't say deposit. And once the columbarium is licensed, it can be sold at that price. So how can you tackle the issue for those who claimed that they will get a license soon? Undersecretary, thank you, Ms. Mack, for telling us various promotion strategies, and the FEHD is constantly monitoring such acts. And in our framework, first of all, we have tabled the bill, and we would like it to be passed as soon as possible. Secondly, there are various requirements under the licensing regime, and at present nobody knows whether an applicant will succeed in getting a license. Even if other land requirements, fire services requirements are met, it's still unknown what the maximum number of niches will be. This will be decided by the board to be set up. So we do not encourage such practice. On the one hand, we should alert consumers on such commercial behaviors, and we do this through various channels in newspapers, on radio stations. We also issue press release to inform members of the public, and we also remind consumers to pay attention to the terms and conditions should they enter into agreement with these private operators, and also to note the compensation mechanism if they cannot get a license in the end. Now, they say that they will be repaid in full if they can't get a license, but by then the ashes would be placed with them. Sorry, your time is up. Wait for another round if necessary. Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. Thank you, Madam Chair. I welcome the administration's proposal. Finally, they are tabling the bill, and yet I have a question. Now, as far as the policy concerned, according to your bill, the year 1990 will be the line to be drawn, and for columbaria built after 1990, or even before, or actually for columbarium before 1990, would they be considered to have been let off so that they can continue to sell illegal niches? As for columbaria after that date, now what happens if the unlicensed columbaria continue to sell niches? How are you going to advise consumers? Now, I received a complaint from OC of a residential development in Tuen Mun, and I shouldn't disclose the name, but the complaint is about a private columbarium operating right next to that development. So I'd like the Undersecretary to explain to us why the deadline should be set at the date in 1990, and what happens to those after 1990. How are you going to regulate them? Now, 1990, the year 1990 is chosen because we want to generally mean that it is a dated columbarium. In the previous two rounds of columbarium, we have heard suggestions that dated columbaria should be given exemption, and we believe that if a columbarium is built before 1990, it is regarded as a dated columbarium. We find this line appropriate. As for those existing before 1990, it may not have met all the licensing conditions, but they do. On the other hand, they do not get automatic exemption. They have to observe our requirements, and maybe I'll defer to my colleague in a moment. So it's not the case that they are let off lightly. And they also need to comply with a condition. That is, after we make the announcement on the 18th of June, the columbaria are required to freeze its scale of operation, meaning that they're not allowed to sell their niches any further. So if they wish to sell their niches further, they should not be applying for exemption, because after the 18th of June, should they wish to apply for exemption, they should not be selling niches. Now that's for dated columbarium before, with operation commencing before 1990. Now that's called a pre-built columbarium. What about a non-pre-built columbarium? Now they will be required to observe all the requirements that we've announced. And as for a pre-built columbarium, it can apply for exemption provided that it doesn't further sell niches. For those wishing to sell niches, then they will be required to apply for a license. And there is a and in the temporary or the temporary suspension of liability, now provided that it doesn't sell unoccupied niches in the period. That is a condition. Well, may I supplement? Before 1990, if that dated columbarium has applied for exemption, as explained by the Undersecretary, it will be required to observe some requirements. For example, after 8 a.m. on 18th of June 2014, it must not sell, including letting out new or unoccupied niches, and the non-compliance must not deteriorate. Otherwise, it's liable to its exemption status being revoked. And there are also other requirements to observe. For example, not to cause nuisance to the neighborhood. Well, should the columbariums wishes to cease its business, the interred ashes should be dealt with properly. So there are various measures from the FGHD to monitor the columbaria. Would members of the public in the public gallery please remain silent? Next, Dr. KWOK Ka-ki. The administration bill has been late, but it's better than nothing, because the fact is that we have a serious shortage of niches. Now, according to the government's paper, we have 50,000 per year. I don't know how you come by the figure, but in fact, in the coming years, there will be 150,000 new niches available, meaning that it can only last for 3 years, let alone hundreds and thousands of applicants waiting in line. So the blunders of the previous administrations have caused the conflicts and clashes in the community. We have various private columbaria operating in various districts, and this is going on, and it seems the government officials are totally unaware of the situation. These operators continue to sell niches. Now, you may make grand statements, but have you taken any enforcement action? Have you made any arrests? If you go to a hospital or the funeral or burial undertakers, you can see that they are still promoting their niches every day. They're not. They're still touting the business, and the FHD has not taken any enforcement action. Now, there are already illegal columbaria operating even before you introduce the bill, and you shouldn't wait to take enforcement action. Now, this bill doesn't cover this part, and it really doesn't address the issue. Secondly, several 100,000 niches, or hundreds of thousands of niches. Please explain more about it. And also, has the administration considered time-limited or short-term columbaria? Of course, for longer-term ones, we need time for them to be built. What about short-term ones? Has the administration considered utilizing, say, revitalized landfills for niches to be placed there? Because the problem is that family members can't wait that long. That's why they buy niches from illegal columbaria instead. They are forced to do that. Finally, something about the figures. About those waiting in line, how many are they? On green burial, now, the situation about green, the gardens of remembrance or scattering of human ashes at sea, the situation is very poor, just 8%. So the administration has done far from enough. Please tell us what you will do to boost the utilization of the service. Undersecretary, thank you, Dr. Kwok. Now, let me answer the last bit of the question first, and I'll defer to DS to take your question on enforcement. Green burials. We're promoting that through various channels, and we're stepping up our effort. We understand that, of course, this will mean a shift in our customs and culture, and it may take some time for the public to get used to it. We don't have a specific target. We'll try our best. As we understand, we really cannot force people to change their customs. As you said, this is not satisfactory. In fact, in our new columbaria, we already have gardens of remembrance. And the FHB and the FHD are continuing to explore ways to help people change their customs in this regard. Now, on figures, maybe I'll defer to DS or the FHD to take your question. Maybe I will defer to the FHD to talk about the those waiting in line. Now, the enforcement authority or departments have continued to take enforcement action. Just to take an example, on planning in Yuen Long, there have been cases in which the DPA plan was contravened, and I won't disclose the name, but enforcement action still ongoing. And Mr. Wong Kwok Hing mentioned another example in Tuen Mun. In fact, the Lands Department and the Buildings Department are also taking enforcement action. And please keep silent upstairs.
I think the chair will remember that, first of all, because they violated Cap 20A, that is the Land Miscellaneous Ordinance, and they've also violated the Buildings Ordinance. And that is why I think the last time we reported to the panel, the Lands Department had already carried out the third prosecution. And this month, the two departments will, take the case to court. Other than taking enforcement action pursuant to the two pieces of legislation, we are also applying for some orders to be issued by the court. But since the judicial procedures involved here, I will not, provide too much details at this stage. Members also asked another question, that is, our supply, whether or not the supply is sufficient. Now, the overall situation is like this. The FHC and the Chinese Management Committee of the Chinese Cemetery, they will take up about 40% of the market. And earlier we've announced that the FEHD, since the January 2nd, 2014, we have relaxed the rules regarding the standard niches and the family niches, so that more than one urn could be placed in a niche. I'm sorry. Because we have limited time, please supplement those figures regarding those on the waiting list. For the, I think we also reported to the District Council already. After we conducted a study, we've consulted with the District Council that we have announced it, because I think the total now is more than 400,000, 40,000. But it's not convenient for us to, tell you about, some other niches because we haven't finalized our consultation with the District Council yet. What about the one at Pickle? Regarding the number on the waiting list, the FEHD, the last time we sold niches, it was in 2009. We sold 18,000 niches in Diamond Hill. Last time, all those on the waiting list have been invited to select the niches. Since then, we do not have any waiting list anymore. In 2012, we sold the 40-odd thousand niches in Kyoto in 3 stages. We are now selling the third phase niches. It's about 24,000, including the 1,540 extended niches in Diamond Hill. For phases 1 and 2, for each niche phase 1 we sold 10,000, phase 2 15,000. Those who have who have drawn the lots, but there are some people who have chosen not to come forward to select the niches. Could you provide us with such figures in writing, because we have a tight schedule today? Sito, thank you. You're only proposing to regulate these columbaria. It's difficult because not only do you need to regulate the operators of the illegal niches, you also need to take care of the relatives of the deceased and the feelings. And that is why now that you've proposed this bill, you need to ensure that there is no vacuum. That is, you have to draw a line. Don't let the illegal operators to take this opportunity to lure consumers into buying those illegal niches. So we've said to the Secretary that during this vacuum period, if people are cheated into buying illegal niches, the government has to, promise that they will help the consumers hold the culprits responsible. The operators now try to collect deposits and expedite the transactions, and then afterwards they can be absolved of any responsibility. I think the government should send out a clear message that this is not legal. It's not only the responsibility of the consumers, but the chairman should also provide some assistance to help the consumers to take recourse, so that those who illegally sell niches will not, breach the law so blatantly. I think. People may be forced to buy the niches even though they know it's illegal, because they know the government will help them. If you think there is a moral hazard here, and therefore you don't propose to help these people. But there are operators who are trying their best during this vacuum period to lure people into buying the niches, even though they're not legal. So you have to tell the public that you will help those who bought such niches to hold the culprits responsible and recover the amount that they've paid. So by doing so, you can reduce the number of victims, and also you can also help the relatives of the deceased to deal with the problems later. When I proposed this to the secretary, he said that it is very difficult because it is something between the consumer and the operator. But the government could give an undertaking to help the family of the deceased to recover whatever losses if they have been cheated after the deadline. Then I think that would be better. Thank you, Ms. Ho, for your suggestion. We also know that after the announcement, there have been such activities involving the sale of niches during this interim period. We've actually discussed with the C&I department, Customer Excise Department, to see whether or not there's some way we can deal with that problem. As consumers, I think through different channels, for example, through our meeting today and through newspaper announcements and radio announcements, I hope the consumers will first of all be vigilant and pay attention, and if they really want to buy the niches, then they should, understand the situation before they do that. And if there are problems with the niches which are being sold, and if the operator has breached, any regulations or the commodities description ordinance, I think that there is a deterrent, effect there against the sellers of such illegal niches. We've also told these private organizations selling such niches not to do that during this interim period. Mr. Cheung Ka-ki. Thank you. Just now, Ms. Ho mentioned the so-called vacuum period. Actually, it's quite simple. You only need to require that the money being paid for the niches sold during the vacuum period should be placed with the solicitor's firm first in an escrow account. No matter how many niches you build, you still cannot catch up with the number of people who pass away, because the niche will not be able to accommodate another urn after it's been occupied. So eventually, green burial is a very important option, but every year there's only 797 cases of scattering of the human ashes at sea. So although in percentage term there was a big increase. And also scattering the ashes in the Garden of Remembrance, the number has gone up. However, not by a very large percentage. So I think you need to step up publicity here. First of all, there is insufficient publicity, and secondly, you're not able to tell the family of the deceased what the whole process is like, and how is it different from burial in a niche. Many people have the misunderstanding that is, if I scatter the ashes into the sea, where can I place the urn? I know that if the ashes were scattered on the Garden of Remembrance, there is still a plaque, right? It's much better than sandy ridge. So if they want to pay homage to their ancestors, they still have this plaque to look at. What about, scattering the ashes at sea? You can't place a plaque at sea, on the sea. You now say that the plaque could be placed on the internet. So I think you will need to explain all these details clearly. And secondly, for each ferry, it can accommodate 10 to 15 cases of the scattering of human ashes. Could you, accommodate more people? So what is the maximum? I mean, there is only one trip every week. Could you increase the number, or could you arrange for such ferries, 3 ferries on a day? And for people with different religious beliefs, would there be different arrangements? I don't think you've explained all that, and that's why people eventually decided not to use such a service. So, Deputy Secretary, could you, give us more details? And also, the proposal to allow more than one urns to be deposited inside a niche is a good thing. Why did you not allow that previously? Was there any reason for that? And why is there any reason why you've decided to make a relaxation this time? Thank you, Ms. Cheung. I can ask my colleague to answer your question regarding the definition of close relatives. That has been changed. We can only allow for more than one urn to be placed because we've changed the definition of close relatives. No matter how many new columbaria we build, if we do not promote green burial and more optimal use of the niches, the supply will never be able to catch up with demand. On green burial, we've been enhancing our measures, and you suggested that we should enhance these measures, and I fully agree. On green burial, I asked the AFCD or the Permanent Secretary to also supplement. I can also report to members the numbers for the Gardens of Remembrance starting from 2007. We started it in Cape Collinson. As at the 30th of June, we have 9,779 cases. Scattering of ashes at sea starts since 2007. After streamlining the procedure, up to now, at the end of June, we have 4,142 cases. Obviously, we agree there is room for improvement there. In the past, we've actually produced some APIs, and going forward, we will step up the promotion through these APIs. The member just now made a very good suggestion. In the Garden of Remembrance, whenever we build new columbaria, wherever possible, we will provide Gardens of Remembrance there as well. On scattering of the ashes at sea, where there are suitable projects, we will build some facilities to enable the family to pay homage and respect to their ancestors. I think the satisfaction level is very high according to our survey regarding scattering of ashes at sea. But regarding the frequency of the ferries and how do we accommodate people with different religious beliefs, the FEST can supplement. Actually, the frequency of the ferries has already been increased. Starting from 2012, we've increased that to 4 ferries per month. Previously, it was only once a month, and then twice, and then 3 times a month. Now it is 4 times in a month. We need to increase this frequency when demand increases, and we're closely monitoring that. As to the maximum number of people the ferry can carry, originally we did not use the large ferries. Now that we are using large ferries, every time we can accept 25 applications, and each applicant can bring along 10 relatives to attend the ceremony. Of course, they will need to tell us a number in advance, and then we will look at the total number, because the ferry, for safety reasons, can only carry no more than 400 persons. regarding the rituals, ceremonies that can be performed on the ferry, we will liaise with the family first. If they want a Western-style ceremony, we can arrange for that. Similarly, for those who would prefer a traditional Chinese ceremony.
All right, time is up. If you want to supplement anything, please do so in writing. So please observe the speaking time limit. It's my turn, 4 minutes. A question for the administration on land. About the public columbaria, there will be 24 sites across 18 districts, but so far only 3 sites have been finalized. My question is it that the administration isn't working hard enough in promoting the proposal? Even for the NENT development, despite the controversies, the funding approval has been given. And yet, we've been waiting for so many years. Now, can you tell us about the 24 sites, when they will be taken to the DCs or consultation? Can you give us a concrete timetable? How much land will be available, and when will they be available, and how much land across 18 districts, so that there is something for us to follow up on. Another concern of mine is in relation to the Alliance's submission. Now, their submission will be forwarded to the Bills Committee, and they're concerned about the window period. Now, we have yet to see a licensing board being set up in the interim, and for the illegal columbaria at present, meaning that they breach 3 areas in terms of land, occupation, and the tenancy agreement. Well, will they be continuing to promote their niches? And consumers, meanwhile, may be misled into buying niches from columbaria which are already non-compliant and which may continue to be illegal in the future. My question is whether the administration will send out a strong message to members of the public that for example, KWOK Temple and other temples, these illegal columbaria which have made 3 breaches will not be given exemption, or will not be given a temporary suspension of liability. They continue to be illegal columbaria. Now, thank you for your question, Chair. On the issue of supply, we are still working on the 18 districts and 24 sites. Now, each site identified by the respective DCs may be different in terms of the topography, so the progress may be different. Some may be going through the TIA, the traffic impact assessment. Some may be conducting a feasibility study, and some may be considering supporting facilities for our consideration. So I cannot give you a one timetable for the progress of all DCs. But I can undertake that we are continuing our effort, because this is a major proposal. As for the window period, I think our message is already very clear. We already have set out the proposed licensing conditions. Now, the illegal columbaria at this stage should know very well whether they will become legal or not. And as said by DS just now, even for columbaria which may be exempted, we still have the ultimate right of approving the exemption. They do not get automatic exemption. Yes. Now, in fact, it's very clear after announcing the bill, we have continued our publicity effort, The Secretary's speaking notes are very clear on the 18th of June, and then we also issued in the end of June a press release, and in July, early July, we have API, and on the 8th of July today we also have press release in newspapers. Now we want consumers to be aware, and in fact, for Columbaria wishing to get an exemption status after the 18th of June, they must not sell niches. So the same applies. Consumers should not buy niches from them after the 18th of June, and our licensing conditions, they are quite stringent. They must meet each and every town planning requirement, and it is not easy to fulfill these requirements. And also land requirement, they may need to go through a lot of procedures. They may need to pay land premium, and in the proposed legislation there will also be other areas and other requirements, so it's quite a high threshold as far as licensing is concerned. And in the press release and the advertisement in newspapers, we've made it clear that for Columbaria not complying with our requirements, even if they claim they will be getting a license, as members have said, we are going to remind consumers to be vigilant, and also they may be caught under the Trade Descriptions Ordinance, that they must not make any misleading promotional statement to mislead consumers. Next, Dr. Kenneth Chan. Thank you, Madam Chair. It seems that the administration is very confident in its work. Apart from publicizing in newspapers, APIs, and the Secretary coming out to make speeches, you must bear in mind that there are two groups of members of the public who are more concerned with the bill and the passing of the bill and its implementation. The first group is those sitting upstairs now. They have been complaining to government departments over the years. They are waiting for this bill to be passed, and they, apart from Cheung Temple and KWOK Temple, in fact we see a longer and longer list in Schedule 2, meaning these illegal columbaria, and they are really worried that some might be let off easily, and you might turn a blind eye when it comes to enforcement, that some may be let off. And the other group may be those who have the need. They may be family members of the recently deceased, and agents may tell them that they should buy their niches first, otherwise the prices will go up. And there's also talk about the Trade Descriptions Ordinance, but I really think that you should focus your publicity effort on those people. You should get in touch with those people. So it's very general today about the three-pronged strategy. I want to highlight the 5 points I made just now. The first point is about letting people off lightly. The government says it's all right. We are being very stringent, but still some may use loopholes. The second problem is the window period. Maybe you should step up your publicity. And there are also concerns over enforcement of the complaints office. Is also dealing with a complaint in relation to KWOK Temple, and the last I heard about it was 6 months ago. It's been 6 months, so you should be careful about the window period, the enforcement in the interim, and Schedule 2. And thirdly, about the burial undertakers, they're exempted. Those in Kowloon City, in Hong Kong, those living there will be very worried whether it will be another business opportunity for them. Fourthly, now other business practices. Recently there are new products of turning ashes into crystals, and there are also some other products which may fall into a gray area, and these are new ways of interring ashes, and will they be caught by the regulation? Lastly, now has the community's voices been heard in the licensing process? After issuing licenses, can the local community be able to express their views under the existing mechanism so that affected residents can still lodge an appeal under the mechanism? So all my concerns about letting off undertakers, burial undertakers, window period, and also representatives of local communities being included in the mechanism, so on and so forth. Now, but your time is up. These are complex issues. I don't want the administration to miss out anything. So would the administration please note his points? We still have waiting in line Mr. Christopher Cheung, Mr. Ben Chan, and a couple of other members. And we also have a motion moved by Mr. Ben Chan. We can decide whether to deal with the motion or not. And I'm going to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. Mr. Christopher Cheung, 2 points. First of all, I support green burials. I think the administration is doing a sloppy job. Now we know in the coming 3 decades or so, the number of deaths will continue to increase, and there is no way you can cope with the demand. Green burials is the only way out. You should step up education and publicity, publish more APIs, conduct more activities, so that in the minds of the public, they will find green burials more acceptable, more noble, so that they will be closer to heaven if they accept green burials. And I think the government is not doing a good job here. Now, some fishermen object to the scattering of ashes in at sea, because the administration has not done a proper regulatory job. The former director was so outrageous. He couldn't even distinguish he doesn't even have a sense of directions. Even for the Tung Long Island, he doesn't know where it is. He says that the scattering can be done as long as you can see the island. So you need to do more in terms of regulating the activities as well as the operators. The other point is about private columbaria. It's a profitable business for consortia. I heard some say that some would like to convert an industrial building in Taiwan into columbarium, and there will be glass paneled walls, and it will be nothing like a columbarium. And people are really worried. If you see incense sticks and candles there and ashes there, the residents will get very worried.
So for the residents living in the vicinity, how would they be affected? First of all, you have to consider the question of transportation. These consortium are not producing several hundreds of niches. You're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of niches. If 100,000 niches were built in Taiwan, how would that impact on the roads? The director asked us for funding. We told them that if you can fix the transportation problem, we're able to help. So if in a single factory building they can provide tens of thousands of niches, can our road networks cope? So in your regulation, you must require these operators to ensure that the residents in the area will not be affected. They need to consult the district council and conduct transport and environmental impact assessment studies. For example, whether they properly regulate people who burn the incenses and so on, whether it causes panic to the residents nearby. So all these you will have to consider. Thank you, Mr. Cheung. Thank you for your support for green burial. We've been doing a lot already, but certainly I agree that there is room for further improvement. Other than green burials, of course, we are also considering not only building new columbaria and also how we can increase the capacity of the existing columbaria. We are constantly, exploring possibilities. We are considering, for example, setting different time limit for the usage of niches, and also have different sessions for the niches to be open to the family and so on. You also made the point that the operator should consult the district council. Well, the licensing committee laid down one of the licensing conditions, which is that the residents in the vicinity would need to agree and support the proposal to build the columbarium, and you also need to obtain approval by the town planning board. When anything is proposed to the town planning board, anybody can raise objections. So there is a mechanism to ensure that all stakeholders can speak out. What about the traffic impact studies? Whenever we build columbaria, this is a necessary step we have to take. Mr. Cheung Bun. Thank you. Since the 8 a.m. on the 18th of June, when you announced that the bill on private columbaria was announced, before that time, all the people who have bought niches, if the columbaria wanted to apply for an exemption, then the niches, those who bought the niches will not be able to place the urns into those niches. These consumers are innocent. I know that there are columbaria which have been in operation for many years. So if the columbaria decides to apply for an exemption, for those who bought the ashes, they cannot no longer place the urns into the niches. The consumers who bought the niches said, well, when they bought the niches, you didn't have the regulation in place yet. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and they cannot place the urn or the ashes into the urn. What can they do? They really don't know what the government's doing. It's not, anything wrong that they've done buying these niches. So you must come up with a way and provide an exemption, so long as the consumer can provide the evidence proving that they had bought the niches before you announced the new policy. Some people might have bought the niches many years ago. They might have bought niches for the whole family, and some children might have bought these niches, for the parents who are still alive. Then they would have spent the money in vain, and that is a problem. So could the Bureau allow them to put the ashes into those niches if they can provide sufficient evidence? That is why I have moved the motion, which I hope members will consider. Perhaps I can also save some time for the Bureau to respond. Thank you, Mr. Chen, and the concerns that you have raised. We've heard the concern expressed elsewhere as well. I think for the those who want to apply for exemption and therefore freeze the sale of the niches in the columbaria, we've actually taken manufacturers into consideration. First of all, we want to ensure that the exemption mechanism will not be abused. We're worried that after we've made the announcement, there would be instances of abuse. and people may try to build a large number of niches. If the operator wants to apply for an exemption, they can continue to expand the business. So to answer your question, at the present stage, we have an open mind. The FEHD is now doing a lot of validating work. We have a reporting mechanism. After we sorted out all the evidence, we will discuss with the Bills Committee when it is set up on the best way to deal with this situation. At this stage, we are reminding the consumers and the public that after that they can talk to the seller of the niches about the transitional arrangements, and we also provide temporary custody service. I'd like to follow up with one more question. The bill will take a year or even longer for us to scrutinize. Meanwhile, people are not able to place the ashes into the niches. So what should they do? So during this time, if somebody passed away, then it would mean that the family would not be able to, put the ashes into the niche. What should they do? Should they take the ashes home? Do you have a more thorough, proposal? 10 seconds. Temporary custody. We do have arrangements for the temporary custody of the human ashes. So, Junyin, thank you. I agree with Mr. Chanang Ban. With the enactment of the regulation, and before you enact the regulation, that is, you should bear in mind that those who have bought the niches before the deadline are not guilty. You should allow them to place the ashes into the niches. As whether the entire columbarium will be licensed in future is something else. You should come up with some sort of buffer or interim measures, and shouldn't prevent those people who have bought niches to place the ashes of their ancestors into the niches. Will those in the public gallery please observe silence? Secondly, I agree with Mr. Christopher Cheung, and that is on the subject of green burial. You've not provided the public with the incentive to opt for the sea burial or the scattering of ashes at sea. Within the industry, there are lots of criticisms about the way you take enforcement. For example, when people scattered the dishes the last time, people would dump the urn into the sea as well. As a result, fishermen who cast nets to catch fish will end up, catching these urns for the fishermen. How would they feel if they pull the net and they discover that there are, these urns in the net? So I think you need to deal with the question of management or supervision, and send out positive, messages to the community. Either provide some, economic incentive, or tell people that if they opt for green burial, their ancestors will go to heaven, and so on. Or officials or even LegCo members can lead by example, so that we can really change, people's mindset. Even if you increase the number of niches by 100%, it wouldn't really help. Thirdly, okay, I still have time. All right, 30 seconds. At the moment, some residents are not satisfied that you're allowing exemption to those who operate in columbaria in the vicinity. Have you considered that this is only a question of traffic nuisance or environmental nuisance or the feeling of the residents. So if it's not a question of visual impact and so on, how can you improve on the transport facility so that you can satisfy the residents? Whether the residents accept or depend whether or not you've done that. If the villagers told they are worried about the traffic situation, the environment, and if the government said we've resolved these problems, and if they still object, then it's something else. But you've not done that yet so far. I think the question relating to the residents raised by Mr. Ho, I think we have actually gone to different councils, and some have raised concerns about the visual impact, some concerns about the topography, and some would simply be the psychological reaction of the residents. We've actually raised the issues of transportation, topography, human traffic with these district councils. We have proposed to resolve these problems so that we would be able to build a columbaria in order that supply could be increased. Mr. Ho suggested that we must go to the districts and find out about the feelings of the residents, because the approach that we take in different districts can be different. On how we manage the human traffic and transport management, we will provide some information for members. The Deputy Secretary also said that before applying for a license, the applicant has to go through the town planning process, and in the town planning process, the TD and the police would require the applicant to conduct a traffic impact assessment first. The licensing authority, in considering to grant a license, would provide a procedure for the public to express their opinion. And if a license subsequently were granted, licensing conditions will be imposed in order to minimize nuisance to the residents in the area. And the applicant will have to comply with those requirements. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, followed by Mr. Michael Teen and Chen Chi-wai. Thank you. Talking about people's our ancestors. Everybody support your proposal to build columbaria, but if you go to a particular district, they always can come up with thousands of reasons to object. So actually, I do not have a better suggestion myself. In Wong Tai Sin, next to the cemetery, a small number of niches have been built. Some colleagues said that we need to consider the sentiments or the feelings of the residents. I don't know how you can do that. How can you deal with people's sentiments and feelings? This is really a difficult task. And I also think that you are wrong in some areas. The Secretary said earlier this year that we might consider, spreading out those people who want to, sweep the graves or during the peak season. So if we cannot do that, I don't think the problem can be resolved. If you put into your design I'm prepared that all the people will go to visit the columbaria during the 2 peak seasons, and how can you get approval from town planning board? You still wouldn't be able to come up with a solution. It's been 7 months already, and you can't even resolve this part of the problem. Secondly, we were very happy because earlier this year we saw the Bureau already, decided to do something to deal with the niches flexibly, so that the family can put, more than one urn into a niche. I think you shouldn't set any limit. I think it should be a voluntary decision for the family members themselves to decide how many urns will be put into niches. So how many such applications have you handled? I asked the same question last time, and I was told no more than 10. Why is it this is a viable option and you don't promote it? Furthermore, there are also some sites for so-called bone burial. So by the same logic, shouldn't you allow the bones or remains of several members of the same family to be buried together? So the question is, how determined is the government to do that? You always say you encounter objections from the district councils and that you respect their views. But you don't adopt the same mentality in respect of other policies. You can always insist on what you want to do. So how do you explain to the public why you have such double standards? I still have half a minute. Perhaps you can explain why you are not doing those few things that I mentioned. I think the biggest supply will come from the 200,000 niches in Sandy Ridge. If you cannot provide for that, then 6 months after the enactment of the regulation, according to your estimate, how many columbaria, how many niches in, how many of the ashes placed in urns will not be properly accommodated?
All right, time is up. So, Under Secretary, perhaps you should reply to Mr. Wu in writing. Next, Mr. Michael Tin. Madam Chair, land resources in Hong Kong are valuable. We all understand that. We want to develop a place, and we want to reclaim land, and we see filibustering, and yet people say we don't have land. We identified 24 sites across 18 districts, and only 3 sites have been pushed through. And recently in Sha Tin, Shek Mun, another site was identified, and yet the neighborhood says that there will be PRH developments, and we need more community facilities with increase in population, and if there is land available, it should be for community facilities. But in the long run, community facilities will continue to be in shortage. So what should be our priority? So of the 24 sites, how many sites can be proceeded with? And I'd like to seek your views in March during the plenary sessions. As a deputy, NPC deputy, I wrote, I made a submission, and it's been 6 months. I've yet to hear a reply. I said that in Hong Kong, we've decided to build more columbarium, and in the mainland, there are also strong criticisms for lack of regulation, and I urge them to consider mainland Hong Kong cooperation with the commissioning of the XRL along the line. I mean, it's supposed to be commissioned in 2016. Now, what if the Guangdong province provides the land and the Hong Kong government provides management and the money, and on its completion, a certain proportion can be given back to them, to that side, and we can collaborate in such a manner so that we can save our valuable land resources for other purposes. And I also mentioned this proposal to the communities. In fact, from West Kowloon, the next station will be Futian, and we can resolve traffic issues. We can do away with any peak period limits, not only spring and autumn peak seasons. So if the State Council agrees to my proposal, will the Hong Kong government take on my proposal? I think thank you, Mr. Tin. I think we should explore this further. There is existing legislation regulating columbarium in Hong Kong, and whether the legislation also applies to niches outside Hong Kong. We need time to study that and explore that. Now, with the tight supply of niches in Hong Kong, I really thank you for your concern about the work at the district level. Well, has the administration ever considered this option? Or are you just considering providing niches in a territory? I'm talking about outside Hong Kong. We can look for cooperation with the mainland, with supply of land from their part. Have you ever considered that? Maybe I'll defer to DS. Now, we did consider, as member suggested, whether to buy land from the mainland for use by Hong Kong residents. That was many years ago, and if I remember correctly, how many years ago? It was 3 to 4 years ago. And now, having considered this proposal, one major issue was, as it was said just now, whether our law can be enforced in the mainland. And this is quite a thorny issue that must be dealt with. And we also understand that for Guangdong province in the mainland, in terms of demand for burial services, they also face certain pressure. So at that time, we considered that we should do what we could first, that is to implement the three-pronged strategy to tackle the issue first, and in the long run, whether we can revisit this option. We are not totally ruling this out at the moment, but we believe we should implement our strategies, including the three-pronged strategy, first. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Your time is up. Now it has to do with the jurisdiction, whether civil servants can and take action and do their work in the mainland. That's another matter. Mr. Ray Chen. Mr. Michael Tian's suggestion is really good. If you want to die in the mainland. If you have to choose between this and scattering ashes at sea, maybe more would choose to scatter ashes at sea. The queue is so long for public columbarium. We need to be innovative. Of course, it's the best if people could change their customs. In fact, from land burial to cremation, there's been a change already. In the past, elderly people didn't want to be cremated after they died, and yet because we have no land, they have no alternative but to take this option. Or the other alternative might really have to die in the mainland. In fact, I mentioned this to the Deputy Secretary. It's quite innovative. Another option is to build a shrine of 100-year-old. Let's say if you die at 70 years old, you can have the ashes placed there until you reach 100, so on and so forth, so that you can have a turnover. Instead of endless intake. Now, if someone dies at 70 or 80, you can place the ashes there for 20 years or so, and it's more short term. The turnover period may be 20 years or so. I think it's worth a try. Otherwise, we just have to continue to build more. Now, if you look at the columbaria in Japan, those shrines are really have a good appearance. It's not scary at all, so it can be innovative. Perhaps people might not find it an obnoxious structure. Some may even take pictures outside. So this is something for the administration to think about. Now, there is also technology, as mentioned by another member, to turn ashes into some form of crystal. It's like plastic beads to me. Is this a gray area? Now, the salesmen actually have given some LegCo papers to their consumers to promote their business. They say that it won't be caught by the law if the ashes is transformed into a crystal. So if that is the case, then really you cannot regulate those plastic beads or crystals. So what is the administration's position? Under Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chan. First, on changing customs and turnover of niches. In fact, we have considered that. For new niches, we do consider in future whether to impose a time limit, and we may consider how to pilot this idea. As for new columbaria, actually they have a very good outlook. From the outside, and it can hardly be said to be a columbaria. And I'll defer to my colleague to take the question on crystals. Now, we understand that some members of the public might turn ashes into accessories or crystals, and we are not going to regulate that. But on the other hand, we note that some columbaria have used this loophole. On the face of it, it promotes transforming the ashes into crystals, but in fact, it also entails the buying of niches. So our position is very clear. In the press release issued on the 30th of June and also in the newspaper today, we already made it clear that we are going to discuss with the Bills Committee on the best way to deal with such situations to stop anyone from circumventing the control in any manner. So we're going to discuss with the Bills Committee and see how we can incorporate this into the bill. Now, of course, if the crystal is placed in the niche, then you can take enforcement action. What about merely plastic beads or crystals? Now, we can consider, for example, amending the definition or incorporating the beads or crystals into the regulatory regime, but we won't allow anyone to circumvent the system. Now, we extended the meeting to the 5:15, but since we have a motion, if there is no objection, may I propose further extending the meeting by 5 minutes. Mr. Ban Chan, over to you. Madam Chair, this motion is about many buyers who have bought niches, but they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to take out niches, and yet they are unable to inter the ashes. Now, the Mem Clerk has circulated my motion to members, and many received them already. And members have gone somewhere else to vote, and now we have only 3 members here, including you, Madam Chair. We have 2 DAB members. Now, I have no alternative but to withdraw my motion.
If any member of the public, especially those who have bought niches that cannot place the ashes of their ancestors into the niches, you have to ask those members who were here just now and have now left and why they are not here to endorse this resolution. So I have no choice, Madam Chair, but withdraw my motion. Instead, I will write to the administration. Mr. Cheung has decided to withdraw his motion because we do not have a quorum present now. I believe, Mr. Chen, if you like, you can also raise this issue again at the Bills Committee's deliberations, and the administration can also respond. I would like to move this passes motion so quickly because on the 1st and 15th day of the lunar month, people would like are anxious to place the ashes of their deceased relatives into the niches. So, but now that we don't have a quorum, I don't think there's anything else I can do except writing to the administration. Oh, perhaps the Bureau can officially, prepare a reply to the questions raised by Mr. Chen Hang-ban. All right. Do we have any other business to deal with? If not, then this is the last meeting of the panel. I'd like to thank all members for your support. I also like to thank the Bureau and the FEHD for attending our meeting today. Thank you.